Welcome everybody, happy June. It's SF Live, episode 41. My name is Kai Hoffman, I'm the CEO of the Soar Financial Group. In a second, I'll be joined by Garett Macdonald. He's the CEO of Maritime Resources. But before we get started, quick reminder, as always, use hashtag AskMAE, that's the company's ticker, for your questions here on Twitter while we're streaming. You can also DM us. That'll pop up here as well, and we'll see it, and we'll get to the questions with Garett after our quick introduction and quick chat with him. Full disclaimer for up, Maritime Resources is one of our newest clients here at Soar Financial. I'm super excited to be working with Garett and the team. We own shares, we own options in the company, so please do your due diligence. Our reviews are obviously biased, and there's good reason why we took them on as clients. You'll find out today as well. But it's a high grade, low capex, safe jurisdiction kind of play, or not just play. Like, I hate the word play because it always sounds demeanal. It's good. It's a great company. You'll find out in a second why. So please stay tuned. Follow us here on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. And make sure to subscribe to our Spotify channel as well to get the latest updates. Now, let me introduce Mr. Garett Macdonald. Garett, how are you doing today? How are things?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How you doing, Kai?
Not too bad. Not too bad. It's June 1st already. I'm blown away. It's like I've been home for 11 weeks now, and time is just flying. I'm sure it's the same for you.
Yeah, it is. It's after PDAC. It's been a little bit different, but no, we're doing okay. Everybody's still working.
No, that's important, and I think we should start right there. Give us a quick update. You guys are in Newfoundland. Give us an update of what the situation is there right now.
Yeah, so in Newfoundland, we're so our teams are working safely and with respect to the COVID-19. So we are able to explore. We're actually planning to initiate our exploration program later this week. And there's some safety procedures, of course, we have to follow, but everything is a go. In Toronto, where our head office is based, our staff are working remotely for now until things improve, but everybody's healthy and still productive.
Yeah, I just spoke to somebody in Toronto on the phone. He's walking downtown in shorts and t-shirt, and there's nobody around. Like, it's dead downtown. It's unbelievable. Yep. Like, we were fairly blessed here in BC. It's pretty much back to business. Like, business as normal. Like, the streets are full of people, and it's just busy, right? But being in Toronto, I hear schools won't open before January. Sorry, there's even that chance, right? So, now I'm glad to hear you're able to work. Maritime Resources company has a bit of history, and you came on about a year and a half ago, if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me there. But to give us a bit of the history, because Maritime sort of disappeared for almost a year before resurfacing, publishing a PEA just right around PDAC. So give us an update on the history, please.
Yeah, so I mean, Maritime's been around for a while. It was, the high-grade Hammerdown deposit is the key asset in Newfoundland near the town of Springdale and Kings Point. So a long time ago, it was a Noranda, project. They were looking for high-grade gold assets in the area. Years later, it was developed by a company called Richmont Mines. They were acquired by Alamos a few years ago, or a couple years ago. They developed the Hammerdown mine with an average grade of around 15 grams. So it was a very high-grade ore body. It was processed at the Nugget Pond facility, about an hour and a half away from the mine site. The most recent history was I came on about a year and a half ago. The company went through some changes. We spent the last year basically going back and doing a lot of extra environmental and technical work. We came out with a bit of a different scope than was thought of earlier, just for a number of reasons. Gold price certainly helped, looking at the resources that we have. We wanted to also include another deposit that we had in the area. It's called Orion, a couple kilometers away from Hammerdown. And then we also changed the scope of the project a bit from more of a pure underground mine to a surface combination with an underground mine startup. So that kept our capital costs lower. We also expanded the production a little bit. We got up to a PEA study that was just announced in February, with an average of 70,000 ounces a year for the first 5 years. So that looked really good, and we came up with about a 9-year mine life in that study. So we took a step back and wanted to really evaluate what the larger project could be for the whole site that we had. And that helps us focus in on this year's program to evaluate and drill down a little bit deeper into the detail about how we develop this mine and where we explore.
Okay, so the PEA, and let's talk about the PEA first. Run us through the numbers, because they were fairly conservative in terms of US dollar assumptions, looking at what other companies are doing lately. So run us through some KPIs there.
Yeah, so we came up with this PEA study. The initial capital was $57 million, which you can basically break down into three parts. So we have a pre-strip at the open pit mine at Hammerdown for about a third of that. We have a north sorting plant in our project at site at Hammerdown for about another third of that initial capital. And then the remaining third was at the Nugget Pond mill, where we would refurbish the existing gold circuit and then add an additional grinding plant in to make that gold plant completely independent from Rambler's base metal operations right now. So if their mill was shut down or ours for any reason for maintenance, that they would be unaffected and be able to run independently. So that was the concept for the study. We would start with open pit mining at Hammerdown before going underground. We also have the nearby Orion deposit with a small open pit and quite a deep underground mine. We got down to about 400 meters on that one. So altogether about a 9-year mine life, averaging around 58,000 ounces per year. But the first 5 years are quite strong, where we see grades coming out of the open pit mine at Hammerdown of over 5 grams. So this gives us a production profile of around 70,000 ounces a year for the first 5 years. That's the ore. So when we talk about grade going to the sorting plant, this is another kind of neat feature and change in our thinking of the project was to use sorting. Hammerdown and Orion are narrow vein deposits. So when you mine them, you're definitely going to take some dilution when you mine them. So the sorting plant, based on all the test work that we did, was able to show with using X-ray lasers, X-rays and laser scanners as the sensors to pick up sulfide particles in the ore stream, which contain the gold. So we're able to reject the dilution that comes along that doesn't contain any mineralization. So the test work showed for us really good results of around 40 to 50% mass pull and about 93 to 95% gold recovery through a sorting plant. So when we're trucking ore, 140 kilometers to the mill, you definitely want to truck the highest grade product that you have. You definitely don't want to truck or process dilution that pays nothing. So that's what the sorting plant can do. And the robust nature of the project is such that the sorting plant isn't required to make it or break it. It's a nice to have feature that looks really good. It's the sorting performance was actually very similar to what we saw at Dalridian when I worked on that one. Very similar ore bodies, quartz veins with pyrite. So it's able to see the particles that contain the pyrite and reject the ones that don't.
So what's the payback on the just on the sorting plant? Like what's the dollar savings per ounce, or how does it impact the economics?
Yeah, so over the life of the mine, we determined that by spending about $4 a ton on operating costs for the sorting plant, we save ourselves around $50 a ton in haulage and processing. So over the life of the mine, that works out to about $96 million savings by using the sorting plant. So, I mean, more test work is needed, of course, when we go through feasibility, but the early indications are now, and we tested it in Germany and in the States on 2 different vendors, and we have similar results from each. So it certainly looks good. So at the end of the day, the PEA study was based on $1,375 per ounce gold. That gave us an $111 million after-tax NPV with a 50% IRR. But since March, things have changed. Gold prices has come up a little bit more. So we're now sitting today at spot price of $1,740. We are looking now at about a $250 million project with a 94% IRR and about a 1-year payback.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Now, does that change the resource model at all? Like if you, I'm sure you're doing it internally, and I know if you put out a PA or even PFS, you can only announce sort of what you've modeled before in terms of sensitivities, right? So you can't go willy-nilly and all crazy with going with 1730 this morning, right? So I think in the updated presentation that I saw this morning, you're talking about $1,500 on the upside. So in the calculation, right? Is that the sensitivity you tested it as a best case scenario?
Yeah, so we would if we were to do it again, for sure, we'd probably draw on some lower grade material and into the resource. And that's actually a good probably segue into our plans this year for exploration. We noticed when we were drilling last year and over the years before, what we're dealing with here is a previous underground mine that ran with an 8-gram cutoff grade around the years 2000 to 2004. So if you were a company back then and you were selling gold for $300 an ounce, when you drill a hole, you're really looking for the best veins to keep things going. So what they left behind, though, is pretty interesting. Then there's areas that we see inside our open pit footprint, areas that were never sampled before. So we actually have some zones that may grade 2 to 3, 4 grams, but they were never looked at in the past because they didn't make the cutoff. But for us, though, with an open pit, our cutoff grade would be down to maybe 0.8, 0.7 grams. And it's certainly worthwhile looking at. And part of our program this year will be to go in and sample additional areas through an infill program. And if we're successful in seeing those grades carry on in some zones, either extending them or finding new ones, that we're able to convert waste into ore, right? And that's a big one. That brings down the strip ratio. And instead of those blocks costing us money, they actually can make money.
Okay, talking about money, you just raised $3.5 million. How do you plan to spend it?
So we have an exploration program starting very soon, later this week, actually. So we raised the 3.5 to kickstart the program. I'd say about 2/3 of that money was flow through, so targeted for exploration, and the remaining was hard dollars for corporate G&A and our technical work. So with the program starting, we have an initial 10,000 meter drill program that starts later this week. We'll be looking at some infill inside our mine plan, some grade control testing as well that we want to check out. And there's about a 2-kilometer gap in between the Hammerdown and Orion deposits that has got very little information. So we're going to have a look at that area too. We have some targets that we identified last year through our geophysics programs. And as well, we have an opportunity which is kind of interesting, very interesting actually, below the Hammerdown mine. So Hammerdown is cut off by a fault at about 250 meters below surface. We're not sure where the rest of the deposit went. It's a bit of a mystery. We have high-grade gold hits both in the hanging wall and the footwall, isolated hits that have never been followed up on before. So it's possible that that deposit could be deeper, or it could be along strike, shifted laterally across the fault. So it's certainly a pure exploration target, and if we were to find it, okay, that would be a game changer for us. So some of our exploration budget this year will be spent searching for the remainder or the other side of the Hammerdown deposit.
Okay. What details of the drill campaign? How many meters are you planning to put down? How many holes?
So for right now, it's we're starting with the 10,000 meter program initially. That's the infill in the mine and our deep holes in the area over towards Orion as well. We then will have a second phase of the program. We'll probably work out from the mine, and we also have a new exploration project. It's called Whisker Valley, about 10 kilometers to the north of Hammerdown. And last year we spent quite a bit of time there, starting from kind of a high level down with prospecting, with soil sampling, with trenching. And what we did with a few drill holes as well is we found a series of these high-grade veins that look similar to Hammerdown. This is a brand new thing, Greenfields project, but it's very encouraging to see veins like that we recognize at Hammerdown showing up in a brand new area.
Yeah, I love how your body language changed. So you're
well, yeah.
No, that's great.
I like that.
I just quickly want to come back to the PA, because the reason for the low capex, the $57 million, is that you signed a deal with Rambler just recently, so that you'll be using part of their Nugget Pond mill. Maybe you can give us a little more detail on the deal you struck there and why that's essential for you guys.
Yeah, so right after the PEA study, about a couple weeks later, we announced a letter of intent with Rambler for the Nugget Pond mill. And really, it gives us about a year, 12-month period of time to evaluate that plant throughout our feasibility study, and then negotiate a purchase. So the Nugget Pond mill is, like I said, has the gold plant situated right beside the copper concentrator. It's an asset that's not being used right now. Historically, it had very high gold recoveries of 97 to 98%. Pretty standard CIP circuit with a tailings pond nearby. So it processed ore for 4 years from Hammerdown once before. So that's the mill that we're looking at right now during the feasibility study. So we'll look at that this year with a little more test work to do and some more investigations into the mill. But we've had people there a few times, and the mill's actually in very good condition. Wouldn't cost a lot of money to refurbish it. But like I said, we had planned to, in the PEA, add some additional grinding capacity into the front end to decouple it from the operation that's there now.
Okay. Are you going to buy it outright or just renting it at this point?
We're looking at all options right now, Kai. It's
early days. No, that's fair.
Yep.
Fair. Yourself, you're an engineer, and you came from Dalradian. You worked with JDS before, so you know how to build a mine. And you just added Eric Tremblay to the team as well as a technical advisor. So your true intention is really to build this, right? So run us maybe a bit through your personal history, because I think that's crucial to the success of Maritime as well, and the background of your team here too.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a mining engineer with about 24 years experience. I started actually in narrow vein mining with Placer Dome in Red Lake, Ontario. Spent a bit of time there with Placer, and I went to Timmins. Was at the Dome mine for a while. Over the years, I've had a mix of operations, engineering, and now project development experience. I was with Rainy River early days as well. Excuse me. And over the last few years, I did spend some time with JDS. We had a consulting company, and we did a lot of consulting on Dalradian's project in Northern Ireland. I was the lead on the feasibility study for JDS as a consultant, and noticed right away the similarities between what they have there and the Hammerdown deposit.
How do you pronounce the Dalradian project again?
Curing Yelt.
Okay, I could never.
Yeah, it's not an easy one. So obviously, they have a great project there, much bigger than we have, and a really world-class gold deposit. But in terms of the mineralization, they look the same, and they perform the same in the mill. They perform very similar with ore sorting. So as we get going on this, we never stop pushing forward to de-risk a project, and you should always push ahead like you're going to build it. So we're trying to set up the team now that takes us through that phase. So we're at a phase now where we have kind of three main things in front of us. So we have the exploration program that we want to do. So I'm trying to say, if we fast forward 12 months, this is what it looks like. So the exploration program will probably be 15 to 20,000 meters. We want to have the feasibility study done in 12 months. And we want to have the permitting completed as well. So we're actually going to look at submitting our project registration next month, or in June, actually this month, for project permitting. So with that schedule in mind, we're starting to now build some of the pieces. And so Eric Tremblay from Dalradian is an advisor to the company. There's no association between the companies other than he's advising us on all of his experience, mine engineering, development. He was the general manager at Canadian Malartic, so he knows a lot about running mines. And I think that's just good valuable information and knowledge to have for a young company.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's invaluable. So, and your advisors usually come cheap as well. You don't have to pay them full salary, right? So, cool. We got some questions on Twitter. I think we pretty much ran through the story at this point. This is not supposed to be a deck flip. I think we covered the most important points. We talked about the financing, the PEA that came out in, I think you filed it March 2nd or something. I saw it. It just reminded me of PDAC. Right, your deal with Rambler, we talked about that, and the next steps already as well. So let's switch over to Twitter, and we got a couple questions in there, and let me start at the top here. And we sort of talked about it a little bit, just now talking about exploration potential at site. But if you don't hit the offset at Hammerdown, what's the next move and other targets nearby?
Yeah, so that's one of the first things we're going to do is target that offset to see what's going on there at depth. Very little information exists below 250 meters at Hammerdown, so we're going to drill some deep holes and see if we see that deformation zone show up. Let's say we don't hit it. We still have a lot of targets that are very interesting. There's the area between the Orion deposit and Hammerdown. It's about a 2-kilometer stretch of ground where we already have geophysical targets showing up from our IP and mag surveys last year. The area also right inside the open pit footprint. There's several zones that we have that are open along strike and depth. And then we also have the trend continuing to the northeast of Hammerdown. So there is a number of targets that we'll look at all year throughout the area, plus the brand new targets we have over at Whisker Valley.
And that was, I remember my comment to you when we first had a conference call. And as a side mark, you're the first client I've ever taken on without meeting in person. So we've done a bunch of Skype calls, but I've met all my other clients always in person. It was always important. COVID prevented me from doing that. But one comment I made on our initial conference call was you can look between Hammerdown and Orion. You can see like a geological fault, like even just on Google Maps, you can see that, right? And tracking and following it. Because I was asking you almost jokingly, like, because I think you put a tailings or something facility right on that. Right?
We put a waste dump on top of that area.
Yes.
Yeah. And, traditionally in this business, the minute you put on any kind of mine features, that's usually where something is going to be. Yeah. So yeah, part of our work, and it works out for condemnation drilling as well, is that we'll explore this area this summer, long before we have any waste dump there. But
No, I've heard the story more than once. It's like, oh yeah, we found stuff underneath our tailings facility or under our waste dump, and it's like more perspective than what you're actually working on. So no, we get another question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you to target the potential source of the boulder field at Whisker with the drill?
10. 100% 10. Yeah. That's a really interesting area, and I'm not a really promotional guy, but I'm an engineer and I like to see things built. But I can see opportunities certainly when they show up, and that's an area that's really interesting to me. There's high grade copper, gold, silver boulders that are as big as your laptop or as big as your desk. They are sharp, angular boulders that haven't traveled very far. So I don't think that they've been sourced far away and dumped there by a glacier or ice. There's something going on there. It's right on the contact of the mag, low and high that we see. So the next step there is to do some ground IP and try to figure out where our best targets are. But I really like that area. That whole Whisker Valley thing is very interesting. You've got high grade veins on one side of the valley and boulders on the other side with the mag low right in the center. So something's going on there. I'm not a geologist, but I can see that happening, and I can't wait to get in there and see where we can drill.
Fantastic. We got one last question, and we sort of talked about it, so I want to expand on the question. And the question is, what is the upside high-grade exploration potential on property, but also will drilling start soon? So we talked about that part. What I want to drill down, maybe get some more detail from you, is like, what does the drilling process look like for you guys with COVID in place still, like in terms of maybe safety measures in place for the contractors and employees there?
Yeah, so I mean, there's safety procedures that we have to keep everyone safe. We work with the Newfoundland occupational health and safety groups as well to make sure everybody's trained and aware of the procedures. Social distancing is a big thing. We try to keep people away from each other as much as we can. Lots of hand washing and cleaning. We're able to work, I think, kind of like business as usual, but we do have to keep people separated and be aware of their surroundings at all time and not fall back into the way we used to do things.
And they're all local drillers and contractors as well.
All
so
local
they don't
drillers,
have to come in from out of territory, right? So
no, that's the great thing about where we work is that we have we have drill companies, we have contractors, we have the assay lab, all right beside the mine. So we're in a good spot.
Cool. Yep. Garett, let's we're sort of hit our time limit, and just want to give you an opportunity to talk about upcoming news flow for the next 3 months. You already gave us a big outlook for the next 12 months, so let's scale it down just a little bit and talk about that.
Sure.
What's coming up here? What can investors
look
forward to?
In the next couple of months, we're going to be very busy with the drill program. We will start with one drill and potentially add a second one, so we'll have news flow coming from them. Many of these holes are quite short, actually, so we're going to have a lot of news coming out on assay results. Look for as well, we'll have an exploration update coming out shortly too when we start the program to give a little more detail on what we're actually doing area by area. And our permit registration, I think, will be the next catalyst as well that we'll tell everybody when we submit, and that process will carry on throughout the next year.
Fantastic. Garett, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Everybody else,
Thanks
thanks for your questions. That was great. Really informative and interactive format here with Garett. Just a quick reminder, Maritime is a client, so do your own due diligence before you even think about buying a single share. That's really important. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Make sure you follow us on Spotify. I'm sure you can listen to a few podcasts on your way to work, from the bathroom to the bedroom and back to the home office. So really appreciate that. And Garett, we'll talk very soon and have you back on with a more detailed follow-up. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks, guys.